Hello and welcome to Royale Without Cheese, our bi-weekly podcast in which we discuss both the classic and the unknown of Hollywood and foreign cinema from the then and now. We are your hosts, me, Tomás Ferreira, Miguel Aido,
Hi.
and Leonardo Miranda.
Here I am.
Today is Double Bill Day as we connect two pictures from the same author. We discuss the work of Francis Ford Coppola with Bram Stoker's Dracula and Megalopolis, but before any ado, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, or simply give us a like. On the one hand, Bram Stoker's Dracula is a 1992 gothic horror based on the 1897 novel Dracula by Bram Stoker. Starring Gary Oldman and Winona Ryder and set in the 19th century, the film follows the famous vampire as he tries to seduce Mina Murray, the fiancée of his solicitor Jonathan Harker, who he believes to be the reincarnation of his long-lost love. On the other hand, Megalopolis is a 2024 epic science fiction drama. It is set in an alternate modern-day New York City, restyled New Rome, and follows visionary architect Caesar Catalina as he clashes with the corrupt mayor Franklin Cicero, who opposes his plans to revitalize New Rome as the utopia Megalopolis. Very well, two gems from Coppola, past and present combine, rich ensemble casts galore and ambitious visuals in the fold. However, did both these controversial pieces from the director's work seduce RWC with their obsessive dreamers, one eager to return to the past, the other ready to embrace the future? Well, fellas, what do we say? Bram Stoker's Dracula was my very first Coppola that I checked out, I think. I have to say, it was just before I entered SDC, our film school. And I think it is... It really, in terms of my favorite Coppola, and I watched it together with Lenny because he came around and we watched the film together. It is always fighting this other film, One from the Heart, as one of my favorites of Coppola. But it is really a film of his that I cherish very dearly. A film that I think has interesting connections with Megalopolis, the other film we have today, his latest, in terms of not only his ensemble cast that he's able to put together, but also just the superimpositions or juxtapositions of images that he likes very much to collide in his shots, which is very interesting. And his ambition has to make a film that is greater than life in terms of past and present, and these ideas of love, unity, and good and evil, and so forth. But with going for Bram Stoker's Dracula in particular, I just want to start with the idea that it's a film that to me really brings forth this idea that your favorite films, the films you connect with, the films you watch and that become your favorite film, produce a feeling in you. And I was just discussing with Lenny this the other day, a feeling that is the same feeling that you have when as a filmmaker you're making your film, which is this feeling of being exposed, this feeling of being cut open like a fish and unveiling your insides to the world. I think what film that you're watching and then suddenly becomes your favorite film is a film that identifies in you something that it's like the film is saying, I know what you're thinking, I know what's inside of you, and I'm holding that within myself, and I think that is what Bram Stoker's Dracula does for me. Every color, every effect, every theme in the movie is something that is bursting with this notion of greater than life ambitions surrounding these themes of good and evil. And the protagonist that is so endearing to me has this anti-hero that travels oceans of time to find kind of someone he lost a long time ago. And it's such an endearing and romantic idea. I think it's a film that really encompasses the romanticism of the 19th century, that literature movement, and more specifically Gothic romanticism, in those ideas of the lonely protagonist that is facing a sea of solitude, and to find kind of a sense of identity and purpose again in life. In the case of Dracula, find his long-lost love, Elisabetha, reincarnated in this modern woman that is Mina, an English lady. And he's an angel, he's a fallen angel. I think just as per the narrative, I think the concept of it is very interesting to me. Again, the idea of time is very involved in this film as much as in Megalopolis, and he's someone who, we don't time travel with him in a way. We cut from the 15th century to the 19th century kind of modern day setting for our story here, but it's as if we felt everything with him, and he cuts his his connection with God, his connection with humanity to become this sort of half monster thing. And I think what's really impressive about the movie, first and foremost, is how Dracula really changes throughout the course of the film, taking these many different forms that really represent what is his emotional state, and that really projects itself in the very sceneries that we see in the film. His first is this very old man, a very melancholic self, very weary of the past. My race is nothing but shadows and dust. I'm the war days are over, and he throws the sword in the table. Or then he becomes the very young gentleman, but very delicate, very sensitive, very eager to please Mina. Oh well, all the while on the other side, with Lucy, he very much lets out his lustfulness beast and becomes a werewolf. And both in suit, because Gary Oldman is often in makeup, but also in the fact that Coppola often uses real life animals to portray Dracula, with rats and wolves and so forth. And yeah, I think I kind of covered all of kind of his main states, and I think that really keeps his character fresh and interesting. I think Gary Oldman plays him with a great tenderness that creates a sympathy for this Dracula person, this character, this vampire that is so famous that in other previous incarnations might have been more of a two-dimensional character, just out there for the sake of killing. While here, the idea of biting someone is very much connected to this idea of sexual repression that was going on, particularly in the days of the 19th century, and these women and these men couldn't really unveil themselves to their loved ones, unless they got married and waiting for their wedding night to really come together, so to speak. And I think Dracula really speaks to those repressed sexual desires and repressed intimacy of those days. And I think, it's a monster that needs to get intimate with you in order to really suck your blood dry and make you feel something. It's an odd thing. There's both aggression, but also a sense of an eagerness to get beaten. I think that's what's concerned in the idea of Dracula. You want that's what it makes me feel like. It shouldn't be. I shouldn't want to get beaten, but I kind of want to. That's what the ideas of vampires always kind of evoke, and what there's a danger in sensuality. And to that effect, I think that Francis Ford Coppola's pressing on using early day cinema effects, practical effects, with matte paintings and reverse photography, where he basically goes back, he reverses the speed of the film. And you have, when you have candles lighting up out of nothing, it's actually the reverse. They were lit up and then they are put away. But on film, he reverses that back in time. So it's all effects done in camera. It's amazing. There's forced perspective as well, with the train go over. There's that one point as Jonathan Harker is going into Transylvania. You have the train going over this hill, and in the foreground you have the book, his diary. Very famously, Dracula, the book, is written in this diaristic form with diaries and notes and what journals and whatnot. It's not a simple narrative. And that diary is put on the foreground while you forcibly put in the distant the little model of the train going. So it's very beautiful. It creates this mystical atmosphere, an almost realistic atmosphere. And I really love it, kind of to paint the film in these first strokes. I want to know what you thought of all that.
Uh,
I don't like it. When Mike
okay.
starts doing this and rubbing his legs and being contorted, I become like, what is going on there? There he is. I knew. But, go on,
Yeah,
go on.
yeah, it's not a great film, I think.
Oh,
All right, all
no.
right. I knew this would happen. I
No,
somehow had
because
a feeling that this bastard would bastardize my film. Come on, I'm ready. Come on, let's go, let's go.
I mean,
This is
okay,
more fun
let's.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
true.
yeah. Of course, of course.
I mean, okay, you mentioned some points, which I agree. I think visually the stronger points are there. I also really enjoyed the shadows, the shadow play. Everything that has to do with sort of the travelings that he uses to force perspective, as you said. I think visually he has a lot of really beautiful shots. Like for example, when I think it's when she commits suicide, and then you have the shot of sort of the ravine, I suppose, and it sort of tilts down,
The
and you see this
precipice.
huge,
Yeah.
yeah, you see this huge gorge, which is a beautiful shot in terms of the colors and everything. So yeah, I think visually, yeah, it's it's where he excels, and I think some performances are also very good. I also really enjoyed Gary Oldman. Um, but okay, let's start pick up apart a little bit the film. Like, as long as we are in the acting stage, what the hell was that accent that Keanu Reeves was doing?
It's not
I
great.
mean, am I the only one that thought that was like terrible? Because it
No, I get it.
completely took me out
Yeah.
of it. Like I couldn't stop
Just
thinking
Keanu
this
Reeves
is.
took you out of it,
I mean, the other ones were fine.
but Keanu Reeves took you out of the movie
Yeah,
because of
because
his
I
performance.
kept thinking, oh, this is Keanu Reeves, cool, and then oh, this is a British accent that a terrible man is doing.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh Mike, I will fucking kill you, man.
But there's
No,
no
I will tell
defense
you something.
possible because
Yesterday we were
it's
discussing Lord of the Rings, okay? And this fella was all like, "Oh, the film gets destroyed for you just because of Frodo." And I'm gonna tell you, my man. So the film gets destroyed of you for you just because of Keanu Reeves? Is that what I'm hearing right now? Huh? Huh?
no, no,
Huh?
because I
What?
haven't even
Okay.
begun to
All right,
delve
right,
into the
right.
criticism. This is just the
Okay.
beginning.
All right.
No,
Go
this
on.
is. I mean, for once, I mean, I love Keanu. I think he's a very specific actor.
Yeah,
But
he's
I
a really sick
mean,
actor.
clearly, I don't think he should do accents. At least not British,
But
because
I do
I don't know.
agree.
It was very forced,
Yes.
and some scenes you just completely forgot that he was doing, and it just came out like whoa, and I was like,
Yeah,
oh, this is Keanu from Point Break. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
exactly. No, I agree. I don't particularly like his Britishness. I think Coppola says that he was trying too hard. He was so focused on the accent that he kind of forgot just being natural, you know. It's uh it's not working very well.
Yeah,
No.
but part of it is like, why cast him then if he was so unsure about his accent? I mean, and it's not like he's a great
Hmm.
actor anyway,
Box
so
office, maybe. I don't
Probably
know how
he
popular
was
he
one of the
was. I think he's more popular back then. It's like,
yeah, he was definitely.
makes
Yeah.
sense.
I'm sure, yeah, but still, yeah, it kind of took
Directors
me out
think,
of it.
I can take a good performance out of this guy. I'm gonna be the one to really make
Yeah.
him
Yeah.
go to the next level, and then didn't
You know,
happen.
that bothered me more in the first viewings, but as I went on and on and on, I just kind of
Because
it
you're
became part
you're
of the
used to
scenery.
it.
But yeah, but I still don't. But yeah, I agree. He's not really great in it. No, like some of the lines, like "I know where the bastard sleeps." So, I just like calm down. Okay. Or when he's on the coach when returning to London, he suddenly sees Dracula, and his reaction of he can't emote. He's like he gets all scared, and he's all like. Like his
I
face doesn't
mean,
change. It's like Jesus, Keanu, do something. Like it's like it just stays wooden. It's incredible. It's so
I mean,
stiff.
yeah, I guess to me it's really more the accent. I don't mind his acting that much, generally, but the accent just felt like really off-putting, and I don't know, just something he should have worked on a bit more. But yeah, this is just a point of the acting because everyone else I think was good. I also really liked Anthony
Yeah.
Hopkins as
Hopkins is
Van
amazing.
Helsing.
I mean, he's so deliciously over the top that we were always laughing. He brings such energy. He's chewing the scenery. Like every time he's reading the book, this is the cause of my brain. And it starts laughing. I'm just kind of, it brings such energy to it that you're like, yeah, man, let's fucking go. Or when like what is it? Quincy says, "I was not planning to get that close, Doc, with the Bowie knife," and he's like, it's, like, it's not that funny, but he's like, it's just amazing. It's just amazing. It's just all for it.
Um,
More stuff, more stuff.
like okay, the main stuff. Okay, one thing that I really didn't get, it's like, why is everyone kind of ignoring things that are happening.
Okay.
Like
Uh-huh.
things move like telepathically, things happen, and everyone kind of ignores it. And it's one of
Who?
those films where
Who
like
ignores it?
characters, like
Can you,
everyone,
but can you
like
name me a scene?
Keanu Reeves when he's in the castle in the beginning, like things are clearly happening, like in front of him, often involving Dracula, and it just stays silent. And it's one of those films where we're kind of supposed to believe that no one would comment, which in some films I
But
get.
he comments. He does comment eventually.
No, it doesn't. No, he eventually says like a voiceover that says, "Now I know I'm a prisoner," which is
No,
okay.
no, 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 no. No, 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 no. That's not
No,
true.
no, no,
He has a
that is
conf no,
true.
no. No, 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 no,
He
no.
doesn't comment
The line is true.
directly to Dracula.
No, 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 no. That's
He does.
completely lie. Like he does say
Screams at him,
what you're
right?
saying. That's true.
Even
But he
has that
confronts
hair that
him
looks like Bill and Ted. He's like screaming at him, telling
when
him, I
he is
know that
shaving
something is
and
going
Dracula
on.
comes into his room. He confronts Dracula because these events, like you say, start piling up, and he finally says, "I've been chased through some blue inferno. I don't know what it is. I've seen many
Yeah,
strange
but
things."
that's way after. Like any normal person would see like a blue thing and like freak out, or when he's
I
shaving
understand.
him,
Sure.
and he does this sort of evil monster sounds and the eyes and everything. It's like
But Mike, this is a heightened reality kind of movie.
I don't care
Even
if it's a heightened reality. I
all
want
right, but it's
realism.
not. But you can't get it from this. It can't, you want this
You're
is
at the wrong
rating at another
place. You're
level.
at the wrong place,
But
It's
pal.
not doing that.
why
You
doesn't
want
he
realism?
say
Go to
more
Robert.
things?
You want realism? Go to Robert Eggers Nosferatu because you probably get more of a greedy thing, quote unquote greedy out of that because
Okay,
no, it's
okay,
gonna be
Yeah.
fantastical.
but then
To
explain
get
to
the
me
guy to
what's the
this
point.
castle. Yeah.
Then I want
Okay.
to know
What?
what's the point of characters just ignoring clearly wrong things happening in front of them or around them, and just what's the point?
What's the point?
Someone tell me. He's like he's shaving him, and and then he growls like epically, and he sort of almost flies
Yeah.
away instantly. And Keanu
Yeah.
Reeves just stands there. Okay, like what? Why? Why doesn't he comment? What do we gain from him not commenting things?
Keanu is the worst example because Keanu also has not helping him his wooden performance, which I think makes things worse. But then I think that that's just a natural fact that he doesn't know what to do. He's on foreign land. To me, that's how I
Nah,
see it. He's on foreign
come
land,
at me
a
with
strange
that.
castle, lonely castle, nowhere to go before that. He's a supernatural creature. Inside of him, he doesn't know like how quite to react. It's like you have a rapist inside your house and he has supernatural powers. Where can, like I mean I think that the wooden acting, and this is why I refer to it, is not helping because he could, if you had a better actor, he could at least react. He could at least confront him a bit more. That's fine. I could say that.
But
But I do
doesn't.
understand him staying there and not knowing how to escape the situation.
I mean, okay, let's imagine I forgive Keanu because he doesn't know how to act. But there are other characters that do this,
Okay.
like when Winona finds Lucy sort of being raped, I guess, by Dracula. She just stands there and like, okay, a monster that I clearly shouldn't exist, and she just observes. Or everyone, like when they are being sort of possessed, they kind of sort of moan, like as you said, like for the sexual repression. No one ever comments on this. And okay, okay, I'm getting it.
So
It's a
you have a
commentary.
problem with people moaning, people listening to the moan and being, and that
I'm
should be weird.
no, I have a problem with no one commenting on things that are abnormal. This is all the thread line here. In this case,
No, I
it's,
see.
you
The
know,
moaning, I don't particularly see it.
the doctors clearly see a patient like moaning, like sexually, and like no one says, "Oh, this is strange. I've never seen a patient moaning."
What? But that
Is
shouldn't
this
like, oh
seriously
yeah.
so?
No,
I mean, am I
but
really
that
making
shouldn't
such an
lead
odd
to.
remark?
I think, for example, the part of the garden and her seeing Dracula, having intercourse with Lucy, that I understand a little bit more than the moaning. Like the moaning and the sexual is odd, but she's feverish,
Oh, it's
in
okay.
pain.
It's serious. She can moan all she wants.
I mean, I don't see how, I understand the moaning because it's part of like the sexual spell that Dracula has her under. What
No,
conclusions
no,
the
no.
doctor should take from it?
I
I don't know.
understand the
Like,
why.
oh yeah, moaning, supernatural creature. That won't lead to that. What should he say? I don't know. Like, what do you want him to
Something, I don't
say?
know.
Something on the lines
Some
of what, for example?
something because I don't
Oh
know,
yeah,
just a
sexual
comment,
moan.
just an acknowledgement of what is happening because everyone kind of that's just another example of everyone just ignoring things that are
No,
happening.
no, they are acknowledging, they are taking care of her. Jack, the psychologist, even says, "I don't know what this is due to. This is so strange," but because that's the best they
But
can react to.
they don't talk about the moaning and the sort of sexual part. They talk about the fever and the blood thing. It's like look at your patient. This is clearly
She's having
like
an
not.
orgasm.
Yeah, why doesn't anyone say that? It's like, and it's not. She's not the only one.
It's not
Like
Doesn't
proper.
bother me.
They're
Sorry, it
posh.
doesn't. I don't see.
They're proper fellas. They respect the woman.
yeah.
I mean, Lenny, what do you have to say about this? Because just give us your input as well. What do you think about all this?
And another thing, and another
Let
Okay,
him
thing.
speak.
okay,
Let
okay,
him speak.
okay.
I'm very sick, so I'm gonna let you speak more this time.
It's and another thing is like, when did this group of like suitors for Lucy and sort of husbands and whatnot become best friends and join Van Helsing to go after Dracula? Because it kind of happens.
Well, they never were rivals. They were only rivals in the sense of their love for her, but they can be friendly.
We're all chill.
Okay, but
Who says
that's
they are
not really
enemies? Who says they
because
are
the
enemies?
idea that you
You don't
get in
know
the
what went
beginning.
before. You don't know what
No,
went
no, but
before.
the idea that you have from the first scene that they have
No,
together is that they kind of have a sort of a rivalry going on between them.
they have a rivalry, but it's like it's a friendly right. It's a rival in the sense for the love of this woman.
You're taking things so personally.
I am because it's like these arguments don't
Jesus
make
Christ.
sense.
Yes, they do. I mean, when you see the
No,
first scene with them, clearly they sort of spike each other. And so the idea is that okay, these are not sort of best friends. They may not be unfriendly, but they're not best friends. But then with Van Helsing
who
coming
says they are
along,
best friends?
that's what I'm saying. They're not best friends.
No, they're not best friends, eh?
Of course, they're not best friends.
But they're
But
not.
it's
That doesn't
not.
mean they are enemies, right?
Yes, it's sort of both streams are possible. You don't really know how they are with each other, but you sense that there is something like something
It's a
between
friendly
them.
rivalry, I think. That's how I equate it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's so ambiguous,
I
like you
mean,
say. It's so open to interpretation that you can easily accept. Oh yeah, rival in the sense of the love for this woman, but then
okay,
to reverse back to being just
ambiguous.
jealous.
Yeah, but it's that ambiguity that makes it kind of strange to me because then Van Helsing appears and they kind of sort of band up like they've known each other all these years to fight some monster. Like
But you don't
I
even
didn't
know if they don't
entirely.
know or they probably knew each other from before. Some parties of like 19th century noblemen,
But
you can imagine that.
if they knew each other, why aren't they more friendly with each other? I mean, it's just a strange relationship. I
More
don't get where
friendly.
they are with each other, like in terms
These
of.
three men.
of-
Okay. Like you're
No, it's
fixating
not
on the
three men.
stuff that is
It's
remarkable. Like I don't understand how it's so
no,
difficult
it's
to
like
grasp.
no, it's an important plot part. It's like
Yeah,
because they
which
become
I
very close and
right.
band together, kind of inexplicably to me.
Like there's look,
I don't
yeah,
understand.
it's like this. Like to me, it's pretty obvious. They know each other from before. Probably socially from previous parties and associatings. They know Lucy. Jack knows that guy. Quincy knows that guy. They know each other. They are friendly with each other. You could imagine that they probably knew each other throughout teenagehood, and now they're kind of each one of them has an interest in Lucy. Okay, one of them gets her, fine. One of them marries her, okay. But then since they all have a love for Lucy, when she has this pressing matter of being sick, they band together to try and save her. What's the
Uh,
complication with that? I don't see how's so complicated to understand. If you have a friend dying, you will band together because you have a common enemy,
but
Dracula. Like, what is like so mind blowing
I
out of
don't.
this? I don't.
I mean, it just seems like
Okay, it didn't click for you. Maybe on a second watch.
no, it's
Maybe I'll
You're
not.
gonna
show it
watch
to you. I don't
again.
know.
It'll never click because I think it comes a bit out of random. I
You're
mean,
right.
I think it's too
Okay.
predicated on whatever may be in the novel that isn't here, I think. I just didn't feel the connection between them, and suddenly they were very close and chasing after Dracula, which I don't know. It just seems like an idea that came out of nowhere. This sort of agreement, sort of subconscious of all of them to just chase a creature. Again, that I suppose that's part of the realism that you're talking about, where everything is kind of everyone accepts things, and okay, fine, we're chasing a monster. I guess that's okay, but again, that's part of the things that I didn't quite connect with because it's so
Like, if I were
sometimes
to
far
point
off.
out things that are more difficult to understand, it wouldn't even be that. Like, it would be there are to me there are far more obvious things. There that you have to make leaps of faith that I can like infer, but for the normal viewer, be like, why does that happen? For example, how does Dracula know of Mina beforehand, of Jonathan Harker
Oh yeah, but
coming into the
but I
scene?
mean, I just accepted that as just whatever.
How
Like,
does she know that like I know, but I only kind of discovered on this watching. Like, I only made the realization now, which is like I kind of always knew subconsciously. It is to do with Rainfield, who worked with Jonathan Harker on the same firm. He probably told him that in London he has this assistant, Jonathan Harker, with his wife. He came to know about her, and he realized beforehand that she was a reincarnation, because Renfield is the guy from the very beginning on the setup who is crazy already in a lunatic asylum. He had gone on to Transylvania, and he probably tipped off Dracula about this woman. Fine, you can make the inference. I didn't get that on the first watch, but it is kind of there implied.
I mean, the reincarnation. Yeah, I mean, I questioned it, but I kind of thought it was this sort of vertigo thing where the girl appears again and whatever. I just accepted that.
It's not even the reincarnation itself that I'm questioning. It's how does he come to know about the reincarnation? Because that's not even in the film explicitly. Most viewers would be like, how did he come to know about Mina? How did this happen? Why is Jonathan Harker even there? Why is he buying houses? Why is he calling this guy in? It's not immediately perceivable. That's what I'm saying. I understand that confusion more. Like,
Yeah,
it's,
no, that's true.
you
That
know,
part isn't very clear. Yeah.
but it is in the film. So it's just very deep. It comes in the form of Rainfield. It's the guy that at the beginning of the film that I was saying is in prison in the asylum. He was the previous kind of solicitor who went to Transylvania, and probably, this is not said, but it's implied, he probably talked about to Dracula about Mina and Jonathan and etc. So when he sees the picture and when he's buying houses, he's already with the impetus of I want to meet this woman. But yeah, anywho, the idea of like Mina seeing him as a werewolf in the garden, having a kind of intercourse with Lucy, to me that's like a sudden
That's
vision in a
another
dream
thing.
that opens up and closes off, and they just dismiss it as maybe I was seeing things. That's how I see it. It's very fantastical, but it happens in a glimpse that I can accept that.
I mean, but
Almost
there's
like she was
also,
sleepwalking and something weird
uh
happens.
but like Mina is also, at least how I saw it, is in fact a reincarnation, and she remembers Dracula.
Yeah,
She
true.
does mention that. So
So
even in
she's
that moment
influenced.
where she sees the werewolf version,
She's
I
almost a
accept
complicit
it. Yeah,
in
it's like
this, like,
something in her memory, remembering the person she used to love. There's an exchange of glances, and I mean, a lot of the film is that between them. It's not like a very deeply developed romance. It's mostly like that moment when he comes back and they're on the street, and he says, "Look at me," or something like
see
that.
me now.
See me now, exactly. And she looks at him. There's that whole exchange. I think sim it's explicit that she is, in fact, that person that he loved in the past, Elizabeth.
And then you have this beautiful scene visually that really cements their love together, even if it's not built over various scenes. You have this lovely scene where one of their first dates with the absinthe that is very sensorial with the glass and her giving the drink, and the way he blocks the two of them, the proxemics, which is like a film term has to say the relationship of actors in between each other and with the camera, is very interesting because they kind of disconnect. She leaves the table, she starts remembering the past. In between them, the superimposition of the events of her dying, her former self, and with this beautiful poetry of words about the river and this distant land with beautiful vineyards. And I think that really sells this hurt and long lost gem of a love of a relationship to me. And then Dracula crying, and this shot on that same date where he appears in the background and she's in foreground. and she this face kind of whispering to her, and then their words connect. It's an image, a figure that accompanies when I'm alone. And it's just so beautiful. The way that scene is conjured to me, and more often than not, has to describe the figure of Dracula. He's equated to this, what you would call a succubus, which is this figure of a devil that sucks your soul while you're sleeping, which is equated with the nightmare. There's a lot of paintings of succubus, and the succubus can be male or female, sucking your soul out of you. And I think that's what Dracula, often in these movies is painted like, especially in the scenes with Lucy, where kind of, you see his shadow coming in the bedroom, and the roses wither, and her body kind of squirms around, and it's just his shadow, and the blood drips on the carpet. I think there's some beautiful imagery creating the emotionality of the movie far more than what the dialogue or what having extra scenes of character development would do. And I think it's a delicious film to that effect.
I mean,
Yeah.
also to go back a little bit to what Miguel was saying, because you asked what my perspective on it was. I understand what he's saying. When we were watching, I even made a joke, like when Keanu Reeves sees like a hand that is sort of, I don't even, it's like a wolf hand, or like it's a very strange hand that approaches him, and he's just like, oh, okay, weird.
No,
Let me go in.
I do understand
I made that joke.
Like,
Yeah,
there are
but like
moments
to
where
me,
I'm like, that's the first moment where I'm like, this is kind of weird. Why doesn't he
Yeah.
react to this? So
But
to
to me,
a
the
degree, I
lack of
understand Miguel
reaction,
totally.
but to me, the lack of reaction is itself what made me, okay, I guess that's just the world that they kind of accept when they go into Transylvania. But I guess to me, I try to fill in the details. Maybe it's a shortcoming of the film, but to me, when somebody accepts going into Dracula's world, the Count's world, that they more or less know that something weird will happen. I don't know if that's also because of other vampire films that you watch that have that sort of dynamic, that the person who goes there is a little bit, at least a lot of the times, a little bit aware of what that person is or what that place entitles. So I kind of accept it, but I totally get it too. It is weird that he doesn't react to a lot of the things that are obviously weird. Like he teleports next to him. He's like, you could mention it, you could say, how did you get here so fast? You were not
Yeah.
behind me.
But that's obvious. Of course, I have to agree that at a realistic level, come on, you see this guy being pulled to a carriage. Even I react like, okay, he didn't react. It's a little bit weird.
But it's
But it's not
strange
every day that I see an
because
extensive arm.
because
But
on
it's a
one hand
heightened
it's like,
realism.
yeah,
Mhm.
but that's the, I guess, curious thing, because on one hand it's so unrealistic, on another hand it's sort of hyper realistic in the way that visually even the film is constructed. So it's it's curious, I guess. Maybe to me it didn't really click on that side, but suppose I can accept it. I did expect the film to be a bit scarier than it actually was. I mean, I wasn't really at all like spooked. I mean, it was more like a visual interest in the way scenes are constructed that I enjoyed. And like with the shadows, as I mentioned, and just the settings in general, the production design. It was something that was captivating. I thought it was interesting to see these things and how they sort of intensify the fear and the suspense of the scenes. But I mean, to me at least personally, it didn't really intensify it. So it was more like an sort of an interest in horror rather than actual experiencing it. Because I also think the film was way more focused on sort of a love story than being scary, I think. Yeah. Which
I
I
mean,
also
when
didn't
I was
expect,
younger,
but
it also depends the layers that you have with the experiencing horror movies. When I was younger, this certainly was very disturbing to me, you
sure,
know.
but when you're running everything,
And
it can be scarier,
yeah, but
or more
I
easily.
wasn't that much younger. It wasn't like childhood. It was like late teenagehood. Seeing this was like scary and disturbing to me. Like, and I watched it at the party, which was really not a good idea, Thomas. Like, I'm bored. Oh, I really want to watch this movie, and I was watching at my aunt's house, Lucy being fucked by Dracula, and everybody was like, Well, you're watching a very funny thing over there. Yeah, like, like, that's what it is. So I was in love with the film. But yeah, I think, regarding your comment on costume design, production design, Coppola really wanted, famously, if you see his interviews about his past work, in Megalopolis and so forth, in Megalopolis, but also regarding his past films, you often will hear him say, that guy didn't understand my vision, I fired him. So, the same thing with Dracula. Dracula was such a difficult production in the beginning, in the sense that, for visual effects, he wanted a very specific thing. He didn't want CGI, which was really booming. It was the beginning of it in the 90s, especially, the first big example of that is Jurassic Park, the first computer generated images. With this film, he really wanted to harken back to early history of cinema effects, and he just fired the guy. He just fired the effects and hired Roman Coppola, his own son, to do the effects with him, because he understood what he wanted. He was coming more from an intimate, artsy perspective. The production design, he
That's
also
exactly
said,
what he does in
yeah,
Megalopolis.
yeah,
Just trying to connect a
sure.
bit because I kind of forgot this was a double
Yeah,
bill.
this is a
True.
double
We're gonna
bill.
get there. We're gonna
We're
get
running
there.
away from it a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. But also production design. He fired the production designer because she wanted to be very, each department wants to have its moment in the sun, and she wanted to be lavish thing. And she said, no, like the costumes are the set. The setting is much more bare naked, so she didn't want. She fired him. And the costumes, and there's one of the dresses or like costumes of Dracula in this film is a Gustav Klimt painting. I was commenting this with Leo, which is the kiss. It's a golden one that he has that I really love. And then the dresses are made by Eiko Ishioko, who is a Japanese costume designer. Works for modeling as well. She died in the early 2000s, I think, but she made a lot of Tarsem Singh films. The Cell with Jennifer Lopez, and which is really
Uh,
weird. But yeah, it's really
all the
rad. But also
greats.
she did The Fall from Tarsem Singh. I mean, Tarsem Singh is a very and directors. It's more visual, substance over style over substance director. But The Fall had the new release 4K by movies, so now it's going up in the air in the mouth of people right now. But yeah, she does really amazing costumes, and in this movie they are really great, and I think they really enhance the characters. I really love them.
I think that's a good place to maybe switch to Megalopolis, just because what you mentioned kind of connects with a lot of the sort of production happenings of Megalopolis. There's this scene where he was even criticized by his crew about not using CGI because it was so much easier than the sort of on film practical thing that he was trying to do. I think it was on a shot of Adam Driver's face when he's after his shot, where I don't know, he was even sort of described as sort of amateurish in the way that he was sort of adamant about the way to shoot that scene, as opposed to just doing it much more easily on computer CGI. So yeah, Coppola does have over the years that sort of tendency towards practical effects, and I think visually there's a lot of things that connect these two films. The use of travelings, the specific things that he uses sort of visually to help.
Juxtaposed images.
Yeah, of course. Sort of the way he uses match cuts, a lot of visual devices. Like for example, in Megalopolis, you have basically sort of when the whole screen goes black and you just see everything through a circle, like it's mimicking a lens.
A Silken
The
Iris
vignette, like an
or
iris
vignette.
vignette.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
sort of
it's a
effect.
dark vignette.
He uses it in
I really like it.
Megalopolis, and I think it's really well done.
Yeah.
A lot of sound design as well in Megalopolis. I think a lot of use of different moments of sound, very particular moments.
Yeah, it's true.
So I thought it was interesting.
I watched this movie very easily. I watched it easily the first time. The second time, it's 2 hours and 18 minutes, something like that. And it goes by really well. There are moments where I was just discussing this with Lo before you came in, but there are moments in this film that I really appreciate and enjoy. I really like the ambition of his ideas in the film, because first and foremost, what you have in the foreground of this film is the idea of what if you had a visionary with the power to ultimately change the world for the best? Would the old system of things, would be open to that change, and what would that be? It doesn't really matter what concretely that new vision would be. We can't even answer what that would be, because it's an utopia. To put an answer on it would be to say to humanity, this is a solution that's going to save us. We don't know. It can be anything. So he creates this kind of megalon, which is this flexible matter that can basically do anything that the plot wants at every given time. But essentially, what the interesting idea is that, and this film is filled to the brim with quotes to that effect from Marcus Aurelius, Petrarch, and then Rousseau, specifically with the idea that civilization is this corrupt idea that was the mistake that mankind invented, so to keep it in this sort of prison of rules. But what man really wants is a freedom, and the freedom that comes from freeing himself from gods, freeing himself from nature, which is a very Illuministic idea from the 17th century. So he picks a lot of that. You see a lot of the influences and ideas that he's been reading, that he's trying to put in this film, and are connected to the past and the future of mankind, and how can you use the past to, paint the future. And so essentially we have this visionary, this architect, Caesar Catalina, who is really painting a future where supposedly society will sustain itself, and we will grow and learn together in these kind of streets that connect together in this wavy, almost Mobius string form like, and we would somehow always have food and always have knowledge, and be generous towards each other. Very sort of beyond just beyond communism, beyond capitalist idea. It just is this utopia. It never ends. It's a cyclical feeding thing upon itself. The resources would be there. It doesn't matter how. Against this old guard sort of idea of things, which is the casinos, the concrete steel, the things that are perishable, they are only served the now. And all those ideas, when they say it on screen, when these characters say it, feel exciting, and it's interesting to think about them. And the acting to that degree, similarly to Dracula, people didn't like the actual Dracula at the time. One of the things was because it was very heightened reality. To some taste, over the top. But in Dracula, I see it more fitting, because everything is a very heightened realism. In here, I also understand it, because from the beginning, there's even a tongue-in-cheek humor with Coppola in this movie to portray some of the ideas. Some of the things that the characters say are over the top, grantedly. And these characters are not quite people. They are archetypes. They are vessels for ideas, much like in a Tarkovsky film, but they're not quite people. They are there to emphasize these ideas, or in a Godard film. The problem is, I think, when you start trying to form relationships with these people, and trying to form an idea of plot with these people that doesn't really, and a sense of continuity with these characters that demands them to be felt as people. And there is where I have some troubles with the movie, because they are not really people. And for example, when you try to have
agree,
Julia,
actually.
well, when you have, what I mean to say is that when you try to have Julia fall in love for Caesar, I don't really believe it. There's a rushness in there that I'm like, so before she was this kind of childlike thing, now we're supposed to believe that she gives him back his inspiration to continue building, where it's such a jump that I don't get it, that I don't believe it. Stop time for me. And it's just, I don't buy her acting there. So there are moments where the acting, I can go along with it, but there are moments where the acting, especially from Natalie Emmanuel, the actress, I don't really buy it. And then when you're trying to form these relationships of these ideas of, oh yeah, he's now inspired because of this woman to continue on with his discoveries, continue on with the projects for this megalopolis that he's building. I just think it's a very big jump. And when we have that other scene with the wife where she discovers that he still cares for her. Oh, he still loves her. And I'm like, we never touch that again. Well, the wife, we keep her in the background, but I don't know what's the weight of that. What's the weight of that in his current project of Megalopolis? What's the real weight of the wife? I don't see it. And we already knew that he loved her anyway, so I don't see what's this discovery of her coming into his house, or his wife's mausoleum. We don't know exactly where that is, and finding him caressing her hair, and her taking the conclusion of, oh, he still loves her. Okay, like, what's the weight of this? I don't know. It doesn't carry on to the next scene or the next sequence of events with weight, I think. And those are the pinpoints in the story that I don't
No.
quite feel it.
I think the point is that it sort of exonerates him from the potential of him having murdered her or whatever the crime was, but I think there was this sort of doubt about it. And the fact that she concludes that he loves her sort
Right.
of
Yes.
takes that
Okay,
away
fair.
from it.
Yeah, that sequence was sort of like a noir. She was with a little microphone taking notes of what he was doing. She was like
Big microphone.
investigating him and finds out that he still loves her. I love that sequence, but I don't like her say, "Oh, he still loves her." It's like
Yeah,
we understand that that's the
the
conclusion
heaviness
because
of it, you
the
know?
way she delivers it feels a little like spoon feeding us the idea that he still loves her when we're seeing it like he's caressing the dead wife, he's caressing the ghost. I think that by itself would have communicated it already. But yeah,
Yeah. But
Yes.
ultimately, also, like the ideas are interesting, but also because, you know, with movies, you often create allegories that create the original ideas, the ideas that you're trying to represent through symbols in the movie. Use these allegories or these other objects to overemphasize them. The thing is, I don't think Coppola really invites the viewer or the audience to think for themselves and ask the question for themselves. We are often put in the situation where, because the characters are saying these things aloud, we need to have a debate about the future. It's like, oh yeah, yes, what is that debate? You know, like we don't really make this question for ourselves. It's like a lecture. I often feel myself being lectured, and
I
it's
think
very
it's a
heavy-handed
mix.
speeches. But it's a mix. It is a mix. It is a
Because
mix.
there are definitely I agree, but I think there are other moments where it's like the opposite. It's so nuanced and it's so convoluted that you actually have to rewatch scenes to understand what they're
It
trying
is
to
true.
say.
Yeah,
So it's this mix of of heavy-handed lessons and also sort of philosophical quandaries that you don't quite get. And so yeah, I think that's part of the reason why the film can be so sometimes inaccessible because it shifts a lot between how it's just moving the plot along between yeah that and mixed with the acting itself, so it's a lot of these things. But I will say that I did enjoy a lot more this second viewing than I did the first.
yeah.
I can't say that like you that the first time I thoroughly watched it and I had no problems with it. I was a bit sort of on the fence.
No, I had my mixed feelings as well, but I enjoyed it. It's not what I mean to say is that it's not a 2 hour movie that I watch with a grueling feeling of ugh. I mean, in the first viewing, there were like midway or at the final quarter of it, I was already feeling a bit detached. But in this one, not so much. But overall, it wasn't a film that I felt difficult.
Yeah, I suppose I had a little bit more sort of detachment to the film the first time around. I didn't really have it as much because I was sort of more focused on trying to understand it a bit more, like trying to analyze specific dialogues, and I sort of paused the film a lot this time and trying to get a grip a bit on the film because I also don't want to sort of think like that I misunderstood it or because it's such a divisive film, so I want to, be sure that I'm catching things the way I'm supposed to. And so, yeah, I definitely enjoyed it more this time. And I did enjoy all of these, brainstorming about, the meaning of utopias. And I think it's interesting that Caesar says something like, the important thing is to just talk about it because I don't know. I think it's a very wise statement because, as you said, utopias are sort of imaginary. So the moment that you say it is, it stops being one. I think the point that he's trying to say in just talk about it is just to actually make it real. Because if you just treat it as in utopia, it'll probably never happen. So I think that's very wise in the sense that if you want to make something, just do it and create discussion about it. Because if you start to label it as something so epic and so grandiose as a utopia, it probably won't happen, or it'll always be viewed in a sort of a skewed manner that prevents it from actually realizing. So yeah, I thought it was interesting. It has moments where it can kind of lead you to think a little bit about these questions and issues, and
No, for sure, I agree, and I agree. The only thing that I put in question is that the audience are not really invited to ask those questions for themselves. Like the idea of let's
it's
have
a
a
very heavy
debate.
film. I think they are, but you have to sort of pause the film, and you cannot do it in the first watch, and it's a film that you have to return to, I suppose. And
Oh, yeah, I think I will discover more things on a third or fourth watching as well. Yeah, for
yes,
sure.
yeah, that's it. I think it's
But I
just
think like one thing that became a constant to me is that we don't really. I don't think the audience really asks questions for herself because the character always kind of dialoguing with you and telling you what to think, what to feel. Like the ideas are
yeah.
very much
Sometimes
there.
it's true. Yeah.
What you need to really discover with other watches is really go off the movie and really learn about what Petrarch said, what Rousseau said, that kind of stuff, what Marcus Aurelius said, what these ideas are bringing in the film and what does it mean with all that. That makes it more of an enriching experience. What was the Catalina conspiracy back in Rome, which was a coup d'etat? But I think a lot of the narrative questions are more the characters telling you what to think or what to ask. And that's what I have more of a problem with. I don't mind being told things sometimes, but it's the old adage of suggestion or showing not telling that is not so much in the film.
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I agree that it's mixed. A lot of moments it's just too much, like clearly very on the nose, telling you what to think. I think it
And for
makes it up.
example,
At least this time around, I thought it made it up a bit more because there are so many other moments where just the way he builds dialogue and the way the scenes are constructed are so, and the content itself is so sort of a pondering nature that it kind of reels you in because you're trying to decipher the scene. And I did enjoy those scenes more this time around because I was trying to get a grip of what he was trying to say. And for me, it sort of made it up for the other moments where it's very obvious. Um, but I mean, I suppose we're saying this as people that are sort of more familiar with these themes and films. So what is obvious and not obvious is also kind of relative. So it's always a very subjective experience, and I think this film really heightens that.
and there are beautiful scenes about it. I love the fact that
Oh
he
yeah, yeah.
wants to explore the frame in new ways by splitting it in three. I think it's almost like he's trying to do the same that was done with that Abel Gance did with Napoleon, kind of using these. It didn't use more than one camera, but all what Abel Gance did was connect different cameras to create this widescreen scenario, one of the first widescreen scenarios. Here, of course, it's not a widescreen scenario, but it's the idea that he's dividing the frame in like three views, and it's almost like it's this confluation of different ideas. And when Caesar starts getting inspired and you see all those sketches building up, I think in the images juxtaposing together, I think it really suggests the idea of brainstorm that you said, that it's really beautiful. And the music really helps to the idea and the effect and the feeling of feeling inspired by the possibilities that may come. And there's also a lot of humor in the film, to that effect, when he starts, and there's a real feel of theater inspired dramatics. For example, the actors, when they try to create jokes in character, they are very theatrical, and they're very performatic for other people. It's Caesar at the red carpet, he is like that. What's the best place to eat pizza? Where's the best place to eat pizza? He starts repeating himself and etc. And I understood it. A lot of first reactions to the movie were to say, oh, the acting is so bad. And I think, well, I get what he's trying to do. He's coming from this theater background. He's imprinting this heightened realism to it. And there are vessels for ideas, not quite human, so I get it. And you get when Caesar first gets introduced and he says that Hamlet speech of the to be or not to be, to face the scorns of time, to deal with the what is it? Whatever of
You're gonna
office.
quote the
Essentially,
whole thing.
yeah, I'm gonna quote the whole thing. Like the sins of office and whatnot. Basically the fallbacks of what life is and how can we leave a legacy. That's what I think the speech is about. What I was left with it.
I think that's very clear in the scene where Natalie Emmanuel comes in to his office, and they have this sort of exchange. And there are a lot of moments of what you say of this performative acting
Yeah,
where
it's true.
he even
Sometime
says,
I
"Go
have
back to the
time.
club,"
Yeah.
or that other time where there's sort of she kind of leans on the table and they share this moment of acting where he even pauses, and it's very reminiscent of theater, like almost with when you're sort of pausing for the applause or the laughing, and they kind of share this sort of acting that is purposefully theatrical, and I thought it was sort of it's very jarring. But once you realize that it's inspired by that, it becomes very obvious. It's literally like they're acting for theater. Like it's a film where the actors are sort of acting for theater. And then that scene, I think it's very clear that even the little pauses they make, it's very sort of theatrical, something that only happens when you're shooting in front of a live audience.
Yeah, but there's also humor in that in unexpected ways. Like she drops some pills that he has, and she says, "What was it?" It's like she drops some pills from some
Expired.
column.
Yeah, she
They're
says,
expired.
"Oh, they're
Expired.
expired."
Yeah.
Nobel Prize doesn't expire.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the connection. Yeah, that's the joke.
Exactly.
Nobel prizes don't expire. Yeah, yeah. And
And
in
she
that
has
moment
that.
that you said, yeah.
She has the other moment where she goes behind him and she says she wants to be sort of the Statue of Liberty, and he sort of looks at her with a fork, like through the
That's very welcome. Yeah.
reflection, which is also very theatrical. All of these little moments of connection, of movement, and of interacting with objects. I don't know. At least I thought it was theatrical in that sense.
Yes, I did. So, and when
Objects
she
falling
stops by
apart.
him and says like, "So you have time to spare," and sometimes I have more time. And it's just these like
Yes,
little silences.
that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
the scene that I was saying
I
that she
know.
leans
Yeah, you were
over. It
referring
was
to it.
it was that dialogue. Yeah, it was exactly
Yeah.
that.
But then, for example, when there's that click in him that decides to open up to her and invite her downstairs so she can see kind of the blueprint that he has of the city built by children, I think the film sometimes has these kind of childish moments that I cannot quite accompany. And Natalie Emmanuel is a hard actress to kind of like appreciate because I don't really like her, in her acting in various points. And in that moment, for example, she walks over the blueprint, and it kind of becomes sort of I was commenting with with Lenny, like it becomes like a Dora the Explorer moment where she's like she goes into this fake world and starts talking this very kind of I feel rain and the people are learning to and can become a little bit it's like a lot of our comments around the movie reflect precisely this. It's a mixed bag, and so if there are moments in which I really appreciate the ideas and the acting, there are others where I feel a little bit cut off and I don't quite buy it, and it becomes a little bit uh, too childish
think
and
I do.
corny. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I do get that. I think what it was going for was like this idea of an utopia being so perfect that it sort of is almost innocent, like a child. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah, I
know.
totally understand that. Yeah,
So
yeah, I know.
everyone acts like it's this sort of perfect thing that everyone can't act but cutely and sort of
Yeah.
wholesome in a wholesome
The
manner.
thing is,
Again, but
because
this is
that
just
scene.
this is in theory. I don't think it totally works sometimes because it goes too far, but I think that's what he worked on at least.
Yeah, yeah. Because that seems particularly loaded with that idea of innocence and childlike imagination. There's often, Coppola in his interviews talks about this. We need children. Children are the future. We kind of need. It's almost like he's saying we need to think like children again, with that sort of innocence and open-minded, and breathe new air, and think like we are the height of little ants looking at the world like it's tall and full of possibility. Like the whole blueprint is built like by children for children, so to speak. But the thing, it's such an idea, that blueprint, with the cardboards and the balls and everything built by children, that when you put an actress there that is talking like a child, it's just another layer that becomes too heavy in that idea that it becomes corny to me. But then there's a very funny sequence to that degree that it's very endearing, which is this montage sequence where he's inspired again to build the thing, and because they now have a relationship together, and he's in his office and there's this kind of samba music going on with his whistles and whatnot, and he's working with his assistants, and they are kind of in this theatrical troupe kind of thing where one of them is walking over each other, come on, like it's a single bridge, and they are kind of going like a group, and he's kind of swirling around in his sort of chair with her, and that's kind of I'm more an adept to that as well. Yeah,
Look at
yeah,
how
that's
I
kind of what
work,
it is.
how
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
good with
yeah,
my
yeah.
employees.
Yeah, yeah.
This is Google. Come work
This is
for me.
Google. Yeah, yeah. Um, but then you have these minor characters who I think get really lost in the frame, like the Wall Platinum thing and the Shia LaBeouf guy. Like I get to put some pressure in terms of antagonism, but they get a little lost to me in the frame of the web of the plot, I think. And for example, Mark Kermode curiously had problems with Shia LaBeouf's performance. I didn't have really. I thought he was what he was meant to be.
Yeah,
He
I
was
thought it
meant to
was
be annoying.
very
He
good
served the
actually.
purpose, you know.
I quite enjoyed his acting.
Yeah. But
Um,
Lenny, you've been a
yeah,
bit
yeah,
quiet.
yeah,
I don't
of
know if you
course.
wanna.
I'm just again, I've said this a couple of times. I'm sick, so
I
I'm
know, I know,
sorry.
I know.
My
But
contributions haven't been the most thoughtful, but also I was sick yesterday as well, and I was watching Megalopolis, so I don't think I had the proper experience. Both I've watched it twice. The first time I also didn't have like quite the best experience, so I feel like I haven't really connected to the film yet. I need to watch it another time with more focus. But yeah, I was like, yeah, very so overwhelming film in many ways, aesthetically, ideas. It's hard to connect, I think. But I see connections between it and Dracula in the way that the plot is, if you focus more on the mechanics and the logic of the plot, a lot of the start falling apart in the sense that it's not Coppola's interest. Even
yeah,
Megalopolis, a fable. So sort of sets the mood that this is more of a film of you know
Moral
ideas.
lessons.
more of lessons, more of lecture. Even that's a funny word to use. Um, so yeah, I think there are lots of things that just like the ending with the baby and the baby stops. I don't.
Yeah,
What's
true.
going on? I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah. Bit
Yes,
reverts back to the idea. Children
so
are the future.
suddenly no, but suddenly only the baby can control time and everything is stopped. The baby will
No,
die
no, that
because
that
no
wasn't
one
it.
can feed
It
him.
was
2001.
he asked Natalie Emanuel's character Julia to stop time, so she's the one who stops time. Remember? Not the
Yes,
baby.
but she's also stopped in a sense.
Ah, yeah, but the
And the
baby's the only
baby's
one who
moving,
isn't.
and the
Yeah, it's
iris is
true.
on the baby.
And the baby can't speak, so he's gonna die after few hours,
Yeah, yeah,
and everything will be
True.
still
yeah, yeah.
forever. I mean, in a okay, yeah, it's a fable, so it's about moral lessons. But I mean, you can't just heavy hand your moral
Yeah,
lessons
that's
to
that's the
others.
duality with
I,
it.
I
You
Yeah.
would have
know,
preferred if he just didn't put
it's a
fable on
double-edged
it in the
sword.
beginning, because now it's almost like an excuse for for what, at least in part, for what he did afterwards.
In the ending, the quote is like the allegiance to the American flag, but completely taken out of patriotism. It's not like I promise my allegiance to the flag. No, it's like to the human race and the human family. So I think
Yes,
has that it shares that very
with
yeah.
children reciting it.
Reading, that's true, true. Yeah.
I mean,
So there's a lot of these ideas.
I just wanna talk about the one bit of visual brilliance, which
Yeah.
is like the moment where it precedes him going to visit his dead wife, and they're going sort of through the slums, and you just see these statues sort of
Oh yeah, that's pretty
coming
cool. That's
alive
pretty cool.
and sort of
Yeah, yeah.
being very tired
Yeah,
and
yeah,
just
that's pretty cool.
giving up. I thought it was amazing. Like when I saw
Yeah,
that
that
on
was pretty cool.
theaters, I was like, wow, this
I
is
was amazed
very
with that in the
original.
trailer already. Like because I saw it there and I thought it was cool.
Yeah,
But yeah,
but it,
it
this,
develops, it
yeah,
develops.
it
Yes, yes,
develops,
yes.
and you can see it on a big screen, so it's so
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, lots
And
of
also the
great
scene where
things.
it's shot is very sort of. I was like, I was scared shitless when that appeared on the theater, because I was not expecting him to be shot, and it was so loud. It's like, fuck.
Ah, well, yeah, I did. Yeah, I had the
And I
jump
was
scare there too.
genuinely like surprised,
Yeah, yeah,
for a
definitely.
long time the film hasn't like caught me so by surprise. I mean,
I think visually the film mostly I really like it. There are moments where you feel a lot of the artificiality, maybe it looks a little cheap even. I don't know. But most
Especially
of
when you
it,
go inside Megalopolis. But
yeah, it's more
take
those
that aside,
moments.
a lot of the
The
effects used
rest
for
it
the
has like a consistent,
juxtapositions
yeah,
are very good.
yeah. And it
yeah,
makes
it's
sense that this
consistent.
world looks like this. It's the future as well, and it's this future. I like most of it.
And I really like the superimposition that he makes with, Rome and America, New York, because it's obvious that, he's trying to superimpose these two realities of past and future. And the key scene in that effect is to create, he creates this anachronism where you have this Colosseum-like stadium, but then gladiators are wrestlers, pop singers like Miley Cyrus, Hannah Montana, childlike thing that didn't become like subversive, sexual symbols trying to find their own identity in the form of this, virgin that we have, singer that then, becomes a scandal for magazines. It's obvious that he's trying to create these links with the past and the idea that every experience that human beings have had, every feeling, envy, rage, gossip has not changed. Only that our infrastructures and our technology has changed, but our interests and obsessions have become the same. And that all culminates in that one scene that is kind of cool. Even when you have like Dustin Hoffman, who is like an old architect, passing by this Huey, the fellow who becomes like the assistant to Claudio, played by Shia LaBeouf. He's selling his military jacket. Oh, look at him, he was a military, now he's selling his jacket, which is a very American image, of post-war heroes, with no money on the streets trying to get by and selling their...
You guys think Dustin Hoffman was kind of misused in the
Yeah,
sense
that's
that
the word I have for it. Underused.
Yeah, underused
Misused too. Yeah.
more correctly, but yeah. I thought his role was. I mean, I don't mind that there's a small role there. I just think that an actor of
It's
his
Dustin
caliber.
Hoffman,
Yeah, I mean,
and you have him just there, like little bit.
my explanation for it is it's Coppola. I mean, actors probably go to him and say, "Put me in. I don't care what role I have."
Yeah.
So I'm just
Yeah,
guessing
maybe, yeah.
something like that.
Hmm. Or like a longtime friend, and he wanted him for this little bit, and okay.
Yeah, kind of like with Michael Caine and Nolan, like just put him
Yeah,
wherever.
yeah. I mean, in Tenet, his role is small. It's only a
Yeah.
brief appearance.
Yeah. How do you guys like interpret the whole thing with Vesta being sort of this singer that's raising money because she's a virgin? Like I'm trying because I had to pause that moment to try to think about it. Because I'm trying to understand like in this world, in this constructed
Yeah, I didn't quite understand what was the purpose of that. I
yeah,
also was a little bit
what they are
confused.
what are they trying to
Like, what's the purpose
achieve?
of the money? I think, I mean, on a literal level, what they say in it is that give her money so she can remain a virgin until she gets married, is something to that effect. So she
She's
can,
pledging to
fulfill
be
her pledge.
virgin. Yeah, she's pledging to
Until a
remain a
given
virgin.
time.
So give her money because she's made this amazing
Give her money
pledge.
because she can't eat while being a virgin, or she can pay her rent while being a virgin is hard. Being a virgin costs a lot. I don't have money to buy a milk as a virgin.
I think it's just, in such a corrupted, hedonistic world, you commercialize the person that doesn't do the things that everyone else does. Like most of the people in this film are not virginal figures, quite the opposite.
And maybe it's a symbolic thing. Maybe the money doesn't go to her; it goes to something else. They say it's
To her
gonna go
pimp?
to the city, keep our city to the pimp, to make our city keep running. That it's also maybe a way to reflect that the city runs on this kind of contests, and it harkens back to a little bit the kind of contests that you see on TV when they say people dial this number 99999 to get the prize. So. That's kind of basically it. I think this sensationalist idea to keep the people entertained, bread and circus, and it's all for a higher cause. The money is going for a good cause. And maybe it's such a yes, the operatics of it, because he intersects it with this ancient Roman idea of virgins, which there were, mixed a bit with this modern idea of television. Contest, it makes it a bit confusing. I was also confused, but yeah, I guess that's what it is. The purpose.
Oh yeah, it makes sense.
Reflect the
Actually.
corruption.
Will he make another movie? Do you guys think?
He's planning on doing something. I don't know if it's a series or a movie. I think he's planning on something. There was news of him doing something else, but
Also
let's see.
big, like this, or a little more contained and...
No idea. Might be another big one. He
a
says
smaller
that,
movie, man.
What is interesting is that he says that his past movies, because he had past movies not so long ago, like his last one wasn't, like if you were to think that his last big Hollywood movie was like Bram Stoker's Dracula was in 1990, 92,
No.
then you have Jack
Jack.
No,
Yeah.
wait a minute. Follow my train of thought. You have Jack, which is with Robin Williams, like a comedy. I think that's also 90s. He says that those were his last big movies, but like he has movies with big stars like Tim Roth, Youth Without Youth in 2008.
And he has
and
like
Tetro,
Tetro and
like
Twix.
2010. So
And
he
Twix
hasn't been
also.
like away for a long, long time. It has been long, but like a long, long time. And he says that those were like homemade movies. Yeah, like let me just get Tim Roth, like my homemade movie with Tim Roth. Like
I mean, yeah. For a guy that worked in the 70s and 80s
sure, yeah,
the way he
Yeah, I
did, I
mean,
mean,
sure.
for
I get his logic, but it's still
look
like
look at 70s
I
Coppola,
wish I
man.
had
It's
Tim Roth,
ridiculous.
like for sure. But it's like that's high end independent
I mean,
films.
yeah,
Like that's still high.
yeah.
You know,
Of course,
like
it's still high, but if you compare him to his generation, Scorsese and Spielberg,
of course,
it's
yes.
different world.
But the thing that gives me a little bit is when he says that his movies, Dracula, Apocalypse, those are more professional. Those are professional. I mean, I'm sorry, like for me, you're a professional, whatever. Like professional is not the same as experience. And professional, it's like you're organized, you do the homework, and you do that whether you are low end, high end. We're independent of the budget. Like I understand that he's using it in terms of a very personal usage of the word, fine, but it does make me a little bit like
Not in one sense.
well,
Compared to what films? Compared to what film?
he's saying that professional movies is what we did with Hollywood, like Apocalypse Now, Dracula, Godfather, and his Tetro and
Okay,
we
so
used to,
is
are not professional movies. I'm sorry, of
what
course they are
about Jack?
professional
What does he have to say about Jack?
I mean, to what point does a professional movie is not a professional movie? I think he's used it in a very personal way.
Yeah, yeah.
So I excuse it. I think, okay, I get it, but still, there are people who would wish to do the kind of movies that you're doing, and still can't because they don't have the money or the resource or the producer. So I wouldn't use that word, although I understand his point.
I mean, yeah. After you've had the 70s and 80s that he had, you're probably gonna say anything to excuse films that probably do poorly afterwards. I mean,
Yeah.
if
I
you've
don't
done
think
The
they have much
Godfathers
attention.
and Apocalypse Now and The Conversation, I mean, I don't know. I mean, for me, clearly sort of has two different stages of quality.
But what's funny about those is that Godfather wasn't well received at the start. Neither Bram Stoker
Yeah,
Dracula.
I don't believe that.
It is true. It is documented. It is real. It's not just a matter of the fake trailer that he put on with the bad quotes. It is before even that was a reality. Godfather
But
wasn't well
there are
received.
plenty of
But it was
reviews from the
successful,
time.
well received
Yeah,
in that
it was
sense.
successful. It went to the Oscars. There's plenty of reviews of the time
They
that
made the
speak
second
highly of the
one
film.
almost
It picked up
immediately.
track, I think. It picked up track after the first night, so to speak. So what he says in the first night wasn't good, or the first week, and then picked up track.
I
It's
mean,
also him trying to create maybe like if you don't like
mythicism
my
of the film,
new
you
ones, you're probably wrong. You're gonna like it later.
Right.
You
Maybe he's trying to
create the
piggyback.
mythos of the people never like it initially, but then they understand the genius. Sometimes he's right, but
What was the other film
it's
that
not
he says was Apocalypse Now wasn't well received? Which that I can believe more.
yeah,
That
that
Apocalypse
makes
Now
more
wasn't well
sense.
received, and even Bram Stoker Dracula wasn't well received. Those
that
two,
I,
yes.
that I believe
Oh,
completely.
Completely.
Fuck off, Mike. Get out of this. Get out of the room now.
I mean,
No problem.
in
man.
Megalopolis, it wasn't particularly well received either. It wasn't
Yeah.
loved. No money on the box office. Probably was. It's not gonna be even considered for awards. It's just a movie. It was made later down the line.
It might, but not the big ones. I think.
Yeah, maybe like
Yeah.
something. Maybe they'll give the old man something. Take the special effects, and even then, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, even that because there are moments where it's very
There are moments
cheap
where,
looking.
exactly. So I don't know.
It will get there. I mean, I'm sure Megalopolis will get to the Oscars.
You're
It will
sure?
get. I am
We'll
sure.
see.
I am
Are
sure.
you willing to put money on that? That's the question.
Whoa. I'm 80% sure.
Okay. I'm sure. I'm
I'm
80% sure.
well, 80% is already
Pretty
something,
sure.
But you're
Something.
I'll bump it. 85.
Not
It will get
95.
something.
But which
Like,
ones?
it
Which
will
ones?
get costume design, it will get costume design because they love Prada and it looks like a fucking Prada ad.
All right, we'll
You know,
see that.
it will get costume design. It will get maybe effects, stupidly, but it will get.
No. I think it might have cinematography though. I think
Yeah,
it makes more
yeah.
sense
Who
than
is the
effects.
Costume
cinematographer?
design, production design, cinematography, like those three, it might.
Might.
Yeah,
And maybe,
Might. It's a weak
maybe,
might for me.
if lucky,
It's not
best
a
actor for
80%.
Adam Driver.
If
Maybe.
really? Is on the
that's
buzz
ins-
thing?
No,
I see
this
zero
is my
buzz for
wild,
any
wild
of these
guess.
things that you're
This is a
mentioning.
wild. This is a
Yeah.
wild.
Zero
This year I don't
press.
even
I
know
see
what the
negative
possible-
buzz.
Yeah, I
Negative
see
buzz.
the opposite. It's like, no.
I
I
see
see
Razzies.
Razzie
I
buzz.
see
Yeah,
Razzie,
Razzie.
Razzie buzz. Yeah,
I
yeah,
wouldn't go so far. But I mean,
yeah.
even then,
Yeah.
probably.
So that's all for today, folks. If you'd like to reach out and suggest a film for the next episode, you can find us on the podcast official Instagram and website pages. Feel free to subscribe, share this episode, or simply give us a like. That's how our podcast can grow ever more groovy. And if you're on YouTube and want to check out more videos like this, check out this next video right here. Thanks for listening and see you next time.